Hi, I'm Thomas Cross Hoops, and I'm a seeker of truth. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. In my pursuit of truth, truth found me, and now I can't stop following him. Join me and my guests as we pursue truth together. I'm excited. It's become my catchphrase, John. I can't get over what I'm doing, getting to speak with so many amazing people, and I'm hearing the beautiful sounds of Puerto Rico. Where are you calling in from today?
I'm actually right in the metro area, right outside of San Juan.
Okay, you can hear those beautiful, it sounds like nature.
It's nature, man. The windows are open, the breezes are flowing. I'm kind of at the foot of the mountains and about 10 minutes from the beach, so it doesn't get any better than that. I get to hear the coquille every day, and it's been part of my musical healing.
We'll have to come visit. I know Tara has family there, so I definitely want to. I've never.
Oh man, you got to get out here. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's been a while, but I was thinking about it before we started recording. It's getting close to 20 years that I've known you, and through one of my best friends, Caleb Fowler, and traveling with Get Motivated seminars. And I remember one of the first time we really connected on a personal level. I was having, maybe got picked on by some of the guys or something, who knows. And I was having a hard time, and you just had me up to your hotel room and just really spoke into my life. It was almost like we didn't know each other, but you saw the redemptive who I was. You saw who I was called to be, and you just encouraged me and spoke into my life. And, I remember starting to go to church with all of your extended family of amazing Spanish church people. I think me and Caleb were some of the few gringos. And, you introduced me to prophetic worship, and Alberto and Kimberly, which was huge on the missions field. They ministered to me so much. And so I just thank you for all of that. And when I moved back from the missions field, I lived with you for 3 months, and you opened your home to me. So
That's great. You did live with us. And, I think I blocked that.
Yeah, I lived. It was 2009.
Wow.
So, April 2009. It's been a while. Well, you've lived quite a life. You've worn many hats. You've traveled the world. You've led worship, recorded songs, pastored, mentored churches across the world. So you've done a lot, and you're in a new season in life. And I'd love to hear about your journey and a little bit about what you're doing now and just your heart. I mean, I know there's so much more to come, and you're in a kind of like establishing a new thing God's doing in your life and through you. But I love to see just how healthy you are. You're physically healthy. You look at peace, and it's so good to see on Facebook.
Thanks, man. I feel great. I love where I'm at today, and that sounds poetic. But there are a lot of adjectives that I could add to what actually got me here, and none of them are beautiful. That's pretty much a shitstorm. That's about how I can put it. A nice long 5-year disaster. But having survived it, which was also very, very, very slim, slightly. I mean, it's like I haven't done anything like this probably 5 years. I've kept myself under the radar, having gone from a very public life to an extremely private life. I enjoy the private life a lot more than the public life. Speaking to thousands of people on a weekly basis and dealing with thousands of people from the business world to the Christian world and everything in between. I mean, it was great. I have no regrets, honestly, no regrets pouring into, the Thomas Hoops of this world, because I saw and I still see that redemptive, value that you bring and that you have. And I mean, I'm just kind of wired that way, Thomas. That's the way I'm wired. I think very highly of myself, and I've always thought very highly of myself. I'm not sure how I picked that up or where I picked that up. I had good mentors, good spiritual parents, good physical, natural parents. And I didn't grow up with a lot of negativity in the sense of where people were speaking down to me and making me strive to be something. So there was a lot of freedom there. And throughout my whole life, even when I left home and went to college in Tennessee, Somehow the people that surrounded me were always so intriguing and empowering and uplifting. Even just friends. I remember, showing up to Tennessee, of all places, ironically enough, with the Southern drawl. And here I am, New Jersey Puerto Rican, speaking Northeastern Spanish, which is not
Where did you go to college? Where was
Lee,
that?
Lee University in Cleveland.
Lee.
Yeah,
Okay, Lee.
Cleveland,
Yeah, I
Tennessee.
remember. Yeah.
And, I'm surrounded by all these international Latinos who are correcting my terrible Spanglish that I swore was Spanish. I would say things like, el rufo for the roof, when really it's el techo. Uh, techo is roof in Spanish, but I would say el rufo. We would use all of these, anglosismos, basically English words with a Spanish accent, and now they're
Right.
Spanish, which obviously we know that's not Spanish. But I always found people that would correct me and would call me into a higher place. And for some reason, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed being taught something that I knew I was deficient in, and there was always this awesome exchange. I helped them with their English, they helped me with my Spanish. So
Mm.
all of that is quite interesting because now I'm living in Puerto Rico. Never in my entire adult life did I think that I would be living in Puerto Rico as an adult. Now, as a kid, we lived here off and on, and it was great. It's a
Mm.
great part of my upbringing. But I say all of that because change is one of the most consistent things that we can count on. And I haven't done these, but I have had many one-on-one conversations. I've been intercepted by a lot of people on social media at times when I would post something that triggered the Christian community. Most
I've seen some of your back and forth on comments. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I'm like, is he just shit stirring to shit stir? But oftentimes you're just asking a question or you're just trying to get people to
to
think.
think.
So
I mean, just to think. And it's funny
uh,
because we would say that the left is so easily triggered in cancel culture, and yet the church is so easily triggered in cancel culture. I mean, if we weren't
yeah,
cancel culture, we wouldn't have how many thousands of denominations. Every time somebody would say something different, and they
yeah,
would tick off the last guy, they'd cancel them and start
yeah,
their own movement. I mean, we're infamous for
yeah,
cancel culture, and yet we can't see that we are, and yet we judge those who now are the cancel culture group, which would be considered the left, but the right has been so good at it for years. Now, I already started making people
yeah.
upset just by saying that, but it's a truth. It's a truth, and so I've had many conversations with people online where they say, you've changed so much. You used to post about this and post about that and post about this and that. I said, yeah, and I don't regret having changed because change demonstrates growth. Then you got people on the other side of the spectrum, upset. If I wouldn't have changed, I would have been stuck. Now they're upset that I'm stuck. Now, some are upset that I'm not stuck and that I've changed, and others would be upset if I was stuck and didn't change. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
you can't make people happy, you can't make everybody happy, but I'm happy. I have been on this journey for the last 5 years of extraordinary change. And again, I
Yeah.
say that more from a poetic vantage point now. But having walked through what I
Right.
walked through was probably the worst thing I ever
Right.
experienced. I lost my family. My ex-wife, who is now my friend, was walking through the worst time of her life personally. It was a major impact on our relationship. Plus, already we had relational things that were going on, just like any relationship. And just add that to what she was going through, and then what I was going through, the different stages of life
Yeah.
for her, for me, outside pressures. I mean, you name it. It was just it was a really difficult time, and we didn't survive it as a family, which then caused me to go into a depression. You would have never made me believe that I would go into a depression. I'm not a depressed kind of person.
Yeah.
Depression turned into wanting to end my life. You would have never told me in a million years and made me believe that you could pay me and I wouldn't have taken it because I could just not believe
But
that.
when you posted about that on Facebook, when you came back the last few years, I remember it starting a conversation, and a lot of people needed to hear that because a lot of times people forget that men and women that are in positions of ministry or lead churches or worship leaders, the pressures they have and the onslaught, and it all bottles up, and they think they could never. And yet, there's some of the highest rate of people that struggle with depression, anxiety, suicide, and you know, part of the journey, you get through it, it's fine, but some people don't get through it,
Right.
and you need relationship. And one of my guests a lot recently is George Wood, and you need community to get through those things. So it's great that, you know, you went back to your home community, your island, and it's great that you have a support system there. Is your brother still there?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
see
My
him
brother's
posting.
here.
So that, to me, I thought that was cool that you got to connect there, and I'll let you finish. But you know, you posted about it and it did start a conversation. I saw a lot of people talking about it and in the notes, and you were getting to pour you. I know you messaged people privately to share some details. You messaged me, and I mean, that was a tough time, but now you're able to tell people don't think it couldn't happen to
Yeah,
you. And when you are struggling with suicide or depression, you have good words that you can give people, and that's, you know, coming through it now, you can share a lot
yeah.
more than when you're in it. And so yeah, I'm sorry for cutting you
No,
off.
no. I mean, it's perfect,
That's
honestly. And you actually said something that a lot of people believed, but honestly, I didn't have that community. I had nobody. Literally had no
right.
one.
When it was happening, I was talking about now that you're in a better place, you found
Oh
a
yeah,
community.
now
You got away from it.
now
That's what
yeah,
I
but
meant.
but
Yeah.
my first few years here, I
Yeah.
I mean I literally moved to another country. You know, Puerto Rico is a United States territory. We are U.S. citizens. Yes, we are 100% U.S. citizens. But Puerto Rico is really run like a different country, and
Yeah.
there was a lot to get used to here. A lot to get used to here, uh, but it was a lonely thing. I ended up homeless. This is the first time I'm actually publicly saying this. Ended up homeless. Would walk into, Burger King or a Planet Fitness and shower and, wash my face and then show up to work like, hey, how's it going, team? And just be happy. They had no idea who I was. They knew nothing of my history, knew nothing of my past, and I concealed all of that. I was just another part. I was just, I was their supervisor, and I was a part of the team. That's who I was, and hiding all of that. And whenever I would feel that overwhelming sense, I would, all right, guys, I have to go to a meeting. I would jump in my car and just drive away because I was about to have a total meltdown. My brain was just racing. I was so broken, so sad. And that went on for years. I have to say this because I've said it before. One of my dear friends came to my rescue. Dr. Mark Sharona from Orlando, opened up his heart, his pocketbook, his bank account, and and blessed me with counseling, and I was able to have remote counseling, and speak to someone. But sadly, Thomas, and this again, people would say, "Oh, you're still offended." No, I'm not offended. This was the facts. A lot of the people that were a part of my epicenter, including, so I have to say that, and people will probably say that I'm offended. I'm not offended. These were just the facts. A lot of the people that were a part of my epicenter, including some very high profile people, were nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found. I was no longer offering them a platform for them to speak. And I'm just going to say it because it's as raw as it is, and that's that. These are the facts. Why would you not reach out? You said you were my friend, but no, I no longer had offerings for you. I no longer had a place for you to do conferences. I no longer had connections and networks that I could open up other doors for you. And that is really sad, but that was a very true and very real thing for me that I had to process and I
Yeah.
had to walk through and I had to release. And I don't hold any of those people in contempt of relationship or God's court or anything like that. I don't judge them, but these were facts.
It just sort of shows the limited ability of what they had to give. Like they had, you know, either for whatever reason, they weren't able to give you what you needed. And if some of them didn't reach out or if nobody even talked to you, obviously, you know, whatever reason, they weren't filled with the right love to
It
give
was
to you at
tough.
that
It
time.
was
And
it was tough.
that is
It was
tough.
really really tough. I mean, no,
Yeah.
no text messages. I mean, it was almost like once I left Tampa, everything went silent, and that silence was deafening. That silence was a dagger in my heart because it's not the type of person I was to the people around me. I loved reaching out when any of my coworkers, partners, ministry friends, church people were going through tough times. Marilyn and I were the ones that were there, and a lot of the people that Marilyn and I were there for were not there for us at all. The grace that we extended to people when their life went to hell in a handbasket, they did not extend that grace to us. Now Marilyn and I have walked through that, and we've spoken about it, and we've almost helped each other heal in that process. She was
Yeah.
just
You
here.
probably had a lot of
Yeah,
forgiving to do, and so you don't hold on to hurt, and you don't let any of those people, not on purpose on their part, but you don't let them have power over you because you had to let
yeah,
go or
and we
forgive and
did. We
forgive.
I don't know what we did. I just know it doesn't. I just know it happened. But
You can think about it without it hurting anymore. You're doing
yeah, I don't.
good.
It
Yeah.
doesn't. It doesn't infuriate me unless they try to deny it.
Yeah.
Then I would be upset.
Yeah.
Then I would be upset. Like,
Yeah.
well, no, no, that's not the way it happened. No, that is the way it happened. But I don't really interact with them, and I don't miss any of that. I'm
Yeah.
somewhere else today, and I'm grateful for the change. I mean,
Mm.
change is so inevitable. If not, we would be back in the Stone Age, and we're not there. I mean, we're
Yeah.
moving into the AI age now. This is beyond Google. Where we're moving into is just something that is.
Yeah. It's
It
scary
is. It
almost.
is scary, but then that makes us sound old because when MySpace came out, people were scared of that. Facebook came out, people were
Yeah.
scared of that. People are always scared of what we don't know. And I'm thinking, is this age or is this really something to be concerned about? I think it might be a little bit of
I
both at this
know.
stage.
It's a little bit
Yeah,
of
yeah. I
both.
think at
Yeah.
this.
Because the market should correct some of it. Like I know, Facebook's meta is not doing great and people sort of really do want to live in the real world. And I'm hoping they get there. I just don't want to see AI turn on the nuclear weapons to wipe out the world. So, it's possible. There was someone just recently warning that type of stuff. So I think we need smarter people in Congress that aren't 80 to talk about
Well,
these
all,
things
all
and
of these things
actually.
fall into the conspiracy theory category, and yet,
Which how many of those came true? You saw Elon's video.
I mean, it's just like how many more conspiracy theories need to come true before we realize, there are a
Yeah.
lot more truths than there are, conspiracy theories. But
Yep.
anyway, again, that's going to tick off, all my friends on the left. So you can't make everybody happy, but I'd rather live in my truth and know that my truth
Yeah.
is actually something that is not based just on my feelings and my emotions. I didn't wake up today feeling like, oh, well, I want to be a conspiracy theorist. I mean,
Right.
you got to be smart and you have to be able to think for yourself, and that's true
Right.
in the non-Christian, non-religious world as well as it is within the religious world. Unfortunately, we are not programmed
Exactly.
to think. We are programmed to submit and obey. And
Yep.
that's why I love posting some of the things that I post from time to time. Sometimes I take long breaks because it does overwhelm me to hear some of these trigger happy Christians. I mean,
Some of the comments get a little
it's
crazy.
like, and not everything has to do with Jesus, and not everything has to be, Christianified or Jesusified. It
Yeah.
just is. I mean, it just is. I don't have to put a scripture after everything that I write, so that somehow it makes it a more valuable truth. You know.
I know some of the people we liked, sometimes you read something from Frank Viola or a Rob Bell, and you don't have to agree with everything they say, but they say a lot of good stuff. And, the whole concept that Rob Bell wanted to promote, that everything is spiritual, that's a good thing. We should learn to live that
I
way.
agree. And what did we do?
Yeah.
There were things that Carlton Pearson said back in the day. And what did the church do? Canceled him because, that's, but yet there are truths that are universal. And yet,
Yeah.
he's a universalist,
Right.
and
And that's what I meant was I didn't really get towards the end of him and why he got canceled. In fact, me and my pastor that I was in China with were talking on the phone the other night, and there was another famous pastor, and we were like, "Wait, that's what he got canceled for?" And we read it, and like this wasn't a bad thing. I'm talking about someone else now. I'm not going to bring him up, but it was like sometimes you look at what happened 5, 8, 10 years ago, and I mean, one guy certainly had character issues, but he was literally canceled from a mega church that he founded for basically. Bully, like being not a pushover by his board or something, and it's like, man,
Well, I mean, go take it way back.
careful. It's like,
We can take it back to the Jesus Revolution. I mean, the movie that just came out, great movie.
yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I heard
It's
it's
really
really good.
good. It is a good movie. However, there's very little that is actually spoken about when it comes to Lonnie Frisbee. Lonnie
Yeah,
Frisbee was the man. He was the
yeah,
boss. That he's the dude that started the whole thing. And so because
and I know he struggled in the end of his life,
I
and
mean
people want to,
the dude was gay. The dude obviously dabbled in drugs. I mean, but who picked him?
but he loved
Who picked
Jesus.
him? I didn't pick him. My denomination didn't pick him. Who anointed the
Yeah,
guy to open his mouth and speak? But who
yeah,
canceled him? We did. Tried to hide it, then tried to disassociate. I mean, I can take it. I can fast forward it. Amy Grant.
yeah.
Back in the 80s, Amy Grant was she was the goddess of Christian contemporary music. She did a song with Peter Cetera, who's not a Christian. It was a love song. She was canceled everywhere because
Oh, I
she
didn't hear
decided to
about
do
that one.
something secular. Lauren
Wow.
Daigle goes on Ellen's show, does something on the Ellen show, ticks
And
off
people get all up
everybody
in
because she
arms.
doesn't take that as an opportunity to, to shove Jesus down, Ellen's throat.
Mm,
So
I like
they
Lauren
wrote
Daigle.
so
She's
many
great.
horrible things about Lauren Daigle, who thank God overcame.
But what you have to remember is, I just remind myself, it's not I mean, it may not be the small minority like Westboro Baptist, and it
Right.
may not be the whole church. It may be a little bit of people with some of these. But remember, like, I came back from China and I just loved the shack. And you remember there was that one part of the book where he said, well, the religious people that wanted him out and wrote all those blogs and websites he said all roads lead to God. But he didn't say that. He said most roads lead nowhere, and God's willing to go down any road to find you. And semantics matter. What he said matters. What he said is not wrong.
Hmm.
Most roads lead nowhere. And so they wanted to cancel him. But that's not, half of the church or 3/4 of the church was able to
It's
understand that. But
it's
yeah,
it's enough.
there's always going to be the Westboro Baptist, and then that's a very
Oh
small
yeah.
minority. But then I see what you're saying. Probably there's a larger portion that would go after some of these people, and that's just religious spirits and political spirits, man.
But
When you
it's
have those,
it's different, because we're so trigger
yeah,
happy and we're not willing to
yeah,
change. And we say salvation is an individual process. Well, so is each and every one of our journeys. Your
right.
journey
And that's been a
is
theme on my
nowhere.
podcast a lot
Yeah,
lately.
and
Yep.
it's nowhere like
It's
mine.
about the journey. It's not about the destination because we already know that. It's about the journey. It's kind of that weird quantum physics that we already are in heavenly places. We already are whole, but we're also on a journey of sanctification and going from glory to glory at the same
Right.
time. And the destination seated, we're done, we're sealed. We don't need to worry about, like, I always knew I was going to heaven when I was struggling with depression, anxiety, sin issues. I always knew where I was going, but now learning that I don't need to worry about striving to get there, and I can focus on responding to the things the Lord's doing in my life day to day. And that's sort of been the theme lately in my podcast. Just for
Mhm.
me, it's been learning to be obedient with those specific
Right.
things he's putting on my heart. And it's individual, like you
Yeah.
said, because, I'm in a season of really laying down some things, but it's not like I have to go and write a religion and tell everyone else to lay down the same things. They have their own
Right.
personal things they need to lay
You know,
down.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
pick up your cross. You're not picking up mine, and we're definitely not picking up
Yeah.
Jesus's.
Yeah.
I mean, my cross is different than your cross, and my path is
Yeah.
different than your path. Our journeys are different. We are universes, each and
Yeah.
every single one of us. That's why salvation is something that we need to work out
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah.
And God is not falling off of his throne because, somebody, had some kind of hiccup in their life somewhere, somebody,
Right.
whatever, somebody's marriage fell apart, Someone
Yeah.
started using, hiding prescription drugs, or is bulimic,
Right.
or masturbated,
Right.
or whatever. We would
Right.
make, mountains out of these
Yeah.
issues, which can be obviously monumental. However, at the end of the
Right.
day, nothing is bigger than God, and nothing is more enduring. All of those things are temporary,
Yep.
but God's love is consistent, and he never
Yep.
fluctuates in the output of his love, because he does not fluctuate in his nature. He is love. And so somewhere
Exactly.
in this process of seeing people, seeing Christians sort of rebel against other believers, other people walking their own path in this
Hmm.
whole experience called life, and watching one reject the other because it doesn't look like what they went through, or what they had to sacrifice, or the things, that caused them to be who they are today. In this whole world, it's like I have realized, that we have so much room to grow. Now people ask me, you've changed so much, and I have. I People ask me, are you still a Christian? I'm like, no. No. What is a Christian? I mean, do I ask a Baptist for their definition of a Christian? Do I ask a Lutheran, a Presbyterian? Do I ask a progressive Pentecostal? Do I ask a holiness Pentecostal? Who do I ask for the correct definition of a Christian? So people ask me, "Are you a Christian?" I'll say, "No, I'm not a Christian." But yeah, I am sometimes, but sometimes not. Oh, I don't know. Who knows? Because I don't know how to define my Christianity has changed. My Christianity has changed so much because
Right.
my Christianity is based on belief systems, and belief systems are constantly in flux. Now, people would
Right.
hear that and be like, "No, they're not."
He doesn't believe in Jesus. He doesn't believe in
I
God. And it's like, you didn't
I
say
never
that.
said
You
any
just
of
are
that.
trying to get back to the basics. Right. You're trying to get back to the basics of a relationship with God and through Jesus versus whatever religious systems people put on
Well,
you.
and through this whole, I don't know why it takes crisis. The type of trauma that I ended up walking through, but it sobered me up. It disconnected me from the life support system called the church for the last 5 years. It disconnected me from that community. It's all I've ever known my entire life since I was a kid.
Mm,
Church, 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 church. To me, there was no difference between church and God.
mm,
And although I seen God do some really extraordinary things, I totally believed in what he could do and what he had done. And there was no doubt in my mind that God is remarkable. There was somehow this fusion between what I practiced in churchianity and what I believed when it came to God. And when all of
mm.
that came crashing, I had a major existential crisis. I was waiting for God to get upset. I was waiting for me to push the limits. I was waiting for all kinds of things. I was even waiting for a reprobate mind. I mean, I don't know how many times I told God to go F himself. I can't count it. I mean, I would in a 5 second span, I would go from silence to crying to speaking in tongues to worshiping to cussing God out to saying nothing. And that was all within 5 seconds. And you talk about an existential crisis. It was the most schizophrenic part of my life. I didn't know if to be angry. I didn't know if to be happy. I couldn't be happy. I was definitely not happy. I was just angry, confused, disappointed, felt abandoned, felt everything. It was beyond the perfect picture of what a victim would feel. But I felt it.
So if you look back where you're at now with, I think you're involved with life coaching and helping mentor other people or being, where would you say over the last couple of years a shift happened for you to start feeling happiness again or start feeling the love of God tangibly? Or, what, if you look back from now to what shifted during that brokenness from 5 years ago, or it might be longer than five now, but you had a
Mhm.
5 year period where it was,
Yeah.
a really bad 5 years. What sort of started taking you out of that?
I have no formula. And I don't endorse people stepping away from church. I'm not endorsing any
Yeah.
of that. This is my journey. This is how it happened to me. And having
Right.
disconnected from those mechanisms, as I would call it, those life support systems, that was a part of my journey, my process. I'm not endorsing anybody walking away from church. I'm not church angry.
Right.
I was church devastated. I wasn't church hurt. I was church devastated. And I was a pastor.
Right.
And I thought I was a pretty good pastor. I mean, if I was a terrible one, I'd say maybe I was kind of average. But I thought it was a pretty.
Well, and that's one of the things that if people don't know your story or don't know you, whatever happened and you had a horrible 5 years and you had your marriage broke up and you didn't lose your family. You still have your beautiful
Yeah.
children. I meant to talk about Devan and Katryel at the beginning, but you also did influence and impact a lot of people, and many people that may not have been on a mature level or a leadership level or to reach out and help you. You have impacted people all over the world, and even some people that might have maybe turned their back on you or not been there like they needed you or reached out or anything, they definitely were impacted in a positive way because you were allowing God to work through you and flow through you. I remember the first church at Orient Road, just the powerful worship nights and worship times we would have. And I know so many people came out of there that are worship leaders and worship this and that. And, all those things that, some have gone on to be youth pastors and worship leaders of big churches. And, those people, that family unit that we had where everyone did everything together and worshiped together and prayed together and did birthdays together. It doesn't matter if people fall away or have no relationship anymore. Those things that happened were real, were
Oh yeah.
authentic, and it was
And I
powerful,
don't, I
man.
don't, I don't regret,
Many,
I don't
yeah,
regret any of those times. I mean, there were some of the
yeah.
best times of my life, and
I mean, remember I got invited when I was first new to you guys, and me and Caleb, and we went to the men's retreat, and there's alligators everywhere, and those quiet times, and we had the times of Bible study in the teaching with all the guys together, and then the time of just guys connecting and going in a canoe late at night with alligators everywhere. Like I will never forget
yeah,
that. And so many of the guys I met from there, obviously still Facebook friends. I run into them in events and worship events, and I hug them, and they all, I still feel that
yeah,
closeness because of the time in my life when they really
yeah,
impacted
yeah.
me.
And there are people,
I think,
I still catch
yeah,
glimpses of people's lives, and I'm just, I'm happy to see them succeeding and thriving and
hmm,
continuing to grow. And
yeah,
now they've got beautiful families and kids that are
yep,
all grown
kids,
up,
and
and
yeah,
going to college. I'm like, wow, time flies. So I,
yep.
you know, I don't regret any of those. I don't regret any of those extraordinary experiences. But where the process really started to change for me is the fact that I was disconnected, that I was alone. This has been my Patmos experience. A John on the Isle of Patmos, all by myself, receiving a revelation of Jesus that I never had my entire life because there was always something trying to incite something else, and yet,
And you filtered it through something else, which was always my
right,
problem. Like I was always filtering my personal redemption and healing and remote, through a man at the front, a ministry, a church, a worship band, and it's something in that religion that causes that to happen, and to have that happen to you, but the way it did for you, it's been such a long process for me to start to like. I can't tell you how many years Jesus would literally tell me, I want you to get it through me. You know what I mean? To get
yeah,
it through me and not this other stuff. And that's a process because something inside of us wants, a mentor, wants a friend, wants a leader to look up to, wants to believe in someone. Like, I think it's part of culture. It's part of the Western culture to,
and
look to the front of the stage to get
all
your
of that is good
cues. And
though. I mean, there's all of
yeah,
that in and of themselves. They're not necessarily bad.
right.
That's not except that they're
But as a believer, I shouldn't be filtering my relationship with God through all these other things. And that's what my problem was. I would subconsciously do
well.
that. So what you're talking about is literally taking away the filter, and you had no filter, and then you had to rediscover Jesus. And so I was just processing out loud to kind of answer what I think you were
Oh,
saying. And
I mean
yeah,
that. I
like,
mean that's literally what happened. All those other
yeah,
filters were gone, and when
yeah,
all of those other filters were gone, I gotta, just to make this, certifiable, Christian. Uh, You know, Job, Job says some really phenomenal things. I never understood Job's life. I just such a bizarre story. I mean, God telling, have you not seen my servant? Telling the devil, have you not seen my servant? I mean, I can't even wrap my brain around that. It's still to this day, it doesn't make. I mean, I've heard a million sermons, and not one person who would actually say, "Yeah, that was really cool of God." No, I'm sorry, that just doesn't make sense. And I'm fine with it not making sense. Before I would have to try to make sense of it so I can preach a good sermon and impress somebody. But now it doesn't make any sense. I don't like it. One day I have to ask them, what the heck was that all about? Like, why would you expose Job that way? Oh, well, it's because the thing he feared has come upon him. I've even preached that. No, God literally ratted him out. It doesn't make any sense, but I'm okay with that. One day I'll understand it. But there are some things that Job says that just left me with this sense of I'm missing something here. I'm missing something here. And then I saw this little video. I don't know who the guy is. It's not a Christian video or nothing. It was just he was talking about belief, and it just like I don't believe that the ground under me is solid. I know that it's solid. I don't believe that Juan and Celsi are my parents. I know they're my parents. I don't believe that Devan and Katryel are my kids. I know that they're my children. I know my name is John. I know my height. I know where I live. I don't believe that I know where I live. I know. I see. That's where some people, are you a Christian? I'm like, do you still believe in God? And it's funny because I want to say no. I don't believe in God. I used to believe in God.
I know God.
Now I know that my Redeemer lives.
See, that's powerful.
It's like I heard of him. I've seen his works. I can't deny creation. I can't deny seeing somebody get up out of a wheelchair. I can't deny seeing, a Lenville Little who was dead and he's now alive till this day. I can't deny that those things happen. And I'll never deny that. I'll never deny seeing this massive cloud filling this tent in Peru. And I'm standing up there and I never saw a thing, but everybody else saw it. I just saw the pictures and I couldn't believe that I didn't see that. And yet I saw all these remarkable things going on. I know those things happened. I don't believe that they happened. I know they happened. And so much of what we say we believe is basically predicated upon a hope. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. It's all in the faith realm. And what most believers don't understand is that a lot of what we use today to feel good about our relationship with God are literally spiritual or ethereal things that are only worth something in our realm. Like faith. You won't need faith when everything is perfect, when it's all said and done. We won't have no more faith. Because faith is a substance of things hoped for. Hope is an anchor for the soul. At that point, we will be one in every aspect with God. We won't need hope. We won't need faith. Faith will be something else. Hope will truly be what hope is. It's not hope. Oh, I hope, I hope, I hope, I hope. We won't have that desperation. There'll be no anxiety. There'll be no fear. We'll be living and breathing perfect love, which casts out fear. So somehow in this whole process that I've walked through that I have no formula for, and I don't endorse any of what I walk through for anybody else because it's not going to get you to where I'm at. This was my journey. This is my process,
Well, also, if it was taking 5 years of going through the ups and downs and hurts and depression, you don't want anyone to have to go through it. Maybe someone else goes through it for a month and maybe someone else is 10 years. So
No.
you can't put a time on it. I mean, the reason I asked what shifted, I mean, you must have been going through a lot of, back and forth with God and back and forth with the ocean and screaming at the trees. And I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
yeah, something, it took a while and that's fine. I mean,
But when I
if I
read
look
when I
at,
read stuff like Job 42 verse 4, he says, "Listen, please, and let me speak." You said, I will question you and you will answer me. I questioned everything about God. I questioned every religious practice, every belief. I didn't question God's existence. I knew he existed, but a lot of what I thought I knew was literally anchored in a belief system that no longer worked for me. It no longer
Yeah.
worked for me. None of my charismaniac behavior, none of that worked for me. Now I said that and people, oh, you don't speak in tongues anymore, you don't believe in miracles. I'm like, people just don't know how to listen. They separate the
Yeah, it's because
words from
you're
people's
talking,
hearts.
you're sharing when you do those posts, and like now you're sharing things. They're getting caught up in the trees and not looking through the forest of what you're trying to say. You're talking about it, the difference between believing in God and experiencing God, the difference between Yada and Adam knew his wife Eve and conceived a child. Like you don't want to be the Hosea Hebrews that kept turning from the Lord and not acknowledging him as their source. You want to be the one. It's literally in the Greek and the Hebrew, it's an idiom for sexual intercourse. Like
Hmm.
that's how close we need to know God. And you're saying just the believing the right thing. So we're in different dogmas and different camps and different denominations. That's not good enough anymore.
No.
And I think that's what God's doing around the earth right now is he is bringing people together. I don't know if you saw Tampa just had the 100 churches with
Yeah.
to gather. And Bill Vanderbush said it and on George's podcast that unity isn't agreeing and believing the same thing. It's willing to lay down your life for someone you don't agree with. And I'm like, whoa, like that's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we're seeing that happening where for years Jesus kept showing me, as the snake is lifted up, they'll be healed. And as Jesus is lifted high, and he always spoke to my heart, when Jesus is lifted high and all eyes are on Jesus, you're in unity. When everybody's eyes are on Jesus, you're in unity. Doesn't matter what
Yeah.
denominations. And that big church we visited, and I had friends that went to in Beijing. It was a very international church. I had the worship leader from when I was there on last night, and Mark was talking about some cool things, and I just remembered it was one of those churches that had people from all these different backgrounds from all over the world. It was very international. I mean, lots of Asian countries, Australia, America, everywhere, and they all had different denominations and they just worship God. And it wasn't about being charismatic or being non-denominational. It was just a big church that honored God,
Hmm.
and that was what kept everyone together. I guarantee you, if someone tried to stir stuff up, they could have divided that place
Oh
with
yeah.
but that's not what that place was about. It was, and I told the story of Andy Piercy so people will get this 2 weeks in a row. He was a worship leader that produced some of Matt Redman's songs and wrote with Matt Redman, and he came to Beijing and he worshiped. And it was like the first time in that room that I felt just the presence of God fill it up. And it wasn't like he tried to be charismania or talk in tongues or talk about miracles or signs. He just worshiped. And people that weren't used to that, the place just got
Wow.
overwhelming with his presence. And I just remember how he did it. And Mark was sharing how it's because he wasn't performing, he was just worshiping. He even steps back in his spirit. He steps back when
Yeah.
he worships and he just leads people into the presence of God. And that's a sign that we don't all have to think the same, agree the same, be on the same place. I mean, isn't that the Hebrew culture that they would come together and talk about the things of God and discuss?
Right.
And didn't they basically argue about the things of
Yeah.
God? It's like,
And that's kind of where I find myself today, Thomas. It's like so many of my belief systems have been just demolished.
mm,
But I know God in ways I never knew him. And
right.
I know me in ways I never knew me. And I know that I know I know how he knows me as well. So it's not only that I know me and that I know him, I also know how he knows me. And he knows how I know him. I don't know if all that makes.
So another level of intimacy is happening that you never
But
had
but I
before.
didn't go looking for that. I didn't go looking
Yeah.
for a deeper level of intimacy. If anything, when I was the worst part of, I just wanted God to go and leave me the hell alone. Like
Right. But
I
that's a common
felt
theme.
used. I felt like I was one of God's horse. That's what I felt like. You used me, and now look at
Mm.
me. Why would you do this? I even say that, and I feel emotional because I really, really felt that. I felt, why? why? I've given you my whole life. I've been a good person, and I knew this, and people say, oh, but our righteousness is as filthy rags. I'm like, man, you know what? That's good for Peter or whoever said it. I, okay, great. I know that. I can recite that stuff too. But when you're walking through it
Right.
and you feel used by God, and yet as I'm walking through this and I'm rejecting so many things and I'm fighting through so many things and so many things are being recalibrated, uh, I go back and I realize God never moved. He was always there. He was always constant, always consistent. And I tried to provoke him to be pissed off. Turn me over to a reprobate mind. F and A. I mean, I would, it's like, kill me already. It's like, and God's like, man, he's really going through it. He's going through it. Boy. Yeah, he never left. And, being here and hearing nature, nature has been part of my healing. The silence, not the clamoring of people waiting for the next sermon. I'm not against that. I mean, it works, for some people. That's just not for me anymore. He said, who's your favorite preacher? Who do you listen to? I haven't listened to anybody. I mean, I've listened to, the last person I heard was Jackie McCullough. She actually had a really good word. I don't think I ever listened to Jackie McCullough. Somebody sent it to me and I was intrigued. And I listened to it. I'm like, go girl, dang, she is throwing down. That was.
So you're not going to delete something just because someone sends you something. You're just saying you're not going to the podcast
I don't need it.
of one person every week.
I don't need it. I love Pastor Bill Johnson. I don't need to go. I don't crave going and listening for any of that. And I can't say, oh, I'm getting these divine downloads all the time. I don't get that either. I just am. And I'm in such a peaceful place. It's great. I feel like I have reverse staged. I feel at peace with myself. I feel at peace with God. My kids are doing wonderful. I get to interact with them on a regular basis. I want to see them more. We've been geographically disconnected from one another.
I was going to do this, so I want to hear what you think of this when you hear it. I want to see your face and how proud.
No, I get the chills.
Cool is that? Is that not so cool? I queued it up on Spotify, and since this is on Spotify and we're talking over it, I know we'll get away with it.
Yeah.
That's your son. That's Devan Garcia.
Yeah,
who had uncles and a father who sang and produced music, and he's living his dream. And he's on a Disney. He's literally on a Disney album.
That's the theme song.
How cool is that? For what? The theme park in California.
That's the theme song for Disney's anniversary. So
that's your son. That's who you raised.
I know, it's crazy. Yeah.
I played that for my kids. They loved it.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
Is that not so
cool? that actually gave me a little tear. And my daughter,
I figured, because I'm tearing up.
Like my daughter, she's also doing so many wonderful things, and she just finished school. She's getting certifications.
I saw her on the news in Tampa. I'm like, this is great.
And there she is in Tampa. She just California Closets.
What's her business? Share. We can put a link.
Yeah, California
on the
Closets. She's got her own business called Cat's Closets, and then she launched a Tampa merch company. Which
that's one.
There was no
secretoftruth.co. We're gonna have a link, just a little bio about John. We'll put a link to Devan's Spotify. We'll put anything you.
All right, sounds good.
If you have any old
sounds
videos,
good.
And we'll put a link to Kat's website or her business.
But she just got another call because they sponsored her on I think it was ABC News to speak about the merch company that she launched. And then California Closets, they have a spot, I think, on, I'm not sure what network it is, but it's one of the big networks there in Tampa. And they called Katryel and said, hey, we'd love for you to join us on this. We want to promote you. So here's awesome. ABC or CBS or NBC, one of those promoting California Closets. And California Closets says, we want to bring Katryel on to promote Cat's Closets. I'm like,
Wow.
I'm proud. I'm a proud dad. I'm super
Yeah.
happy for them, and I'm even super happy for Marilyn. She was just here. Got to spend some time with her, and happy for.
I've seen that recently on Facebook, and that how you're promoting, like, you guys have grown into being better friends and a better
Yeah,
support for each other. And that's powerful because most Christians think like, oh my gosh, if you got divorced, like that's the end of your your life with your ex and you're done. And but it doesn't have, because God can redeem
yeah.
everything. And if you have a better relationship and friendship with her now than when it was in the worst at the
hmm
end, then isn't that what God would want, to
Yeah.
redeem
I
that
mean, she's a good
friendship? And
woman. She's a good woman. She always was a good woman, and she was a phenomenal
yeah.
mom. And things were,
I have memories of when I lived with you, cooking with her and helping her in the
yeah,
kitchen, and just she was always just so lifeful, a
yeah,
young mom,
yeah,
and she was like a big sister, second mom to
yeah.
me, and I loved it.
She's
Yeah,
she's 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 in a great place, and we all are. There's still process.
yeah,
There's things that we're walking through, and
yeah,
but I'm grateful. I'm grateful for where I am today. And again, I don't say that in the most poetic of ways. It was hell, but I'm so glad that we've all endured what we've endured. And you know, I
yeah,
I don't want to believe I don't want to be like the demons who believe and tremble but are never changed. I want to be fully
yeah,
convinced of what I know in my relationship with God. And nobody has to ever tell me,
yeah,
do you believe in God? Because I don't believe in God. I know that He is, and that He is a rewarder of
yeah.
those who diligently seek Him. And so that's where I'm at today.
I might find that YouTube video. I saw it on social media. It was an older African American man and talking to a younger guy. And I think he's like, so you believe you're white? And the guy's like, yes, I believe I'm white. He's like, no, you don't believe, then you don't know who you are. He was like, race is just whatever. And it was basically about saying how we're all the same.
Right.
But he was like, he's like, if you believe, you don't know. And I saw it
That
too. And I
messed
thought it
with
was
me.
brilliant. And yeah,
It wasn't as much
so
the
that's
racial
powerful
thing.
because
The race thing was
well,
obviously
but he was using it to highlight that we're all the same inside
right.
and all that. But I think the philosophical that you're grabbing from it, I like even better, because it's almost like the whole concept of the Greek and Hebrew of the word knowing. Every time you read it, it's about an experiential knowledge. It's not about an intellectual
No.
knowledge. And in YWAM we always call it the Greek and the Hebrew. The Hebrew is the experiential, and the Greek is the
Yeah.
knowledge. And we need both. They always say it's like the wings of a
Right.
bird. You can't flap with
Right.
one. But I always say if you only had one, I would take the experiential
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
Because and the one thing, he gave me this goofy analogy years ago, but he gave me this analogy about Starbucks. And if I told you that there's a free cup of Starbucks every day at 12 o'clock and you believe it, but you never go and experience it and pick it up, do you truly know that it's there? And that was, I used that in the message I gave. I'm like, that's to me it right there.
Yeah.
The difference between knowing something's there and experiencing that
hmm
coffee. And that's how I think about
Yeah.
it. So
It's you know I always and I'm not but that is the video. Let me make sure with that is the video.
that
And I
is
and
the
I
video.
saw it, and the racial thing was like, oh wow, that's really what a remarkable way of thinking. But then I
Yeah.
kept on thinking about what he said, and I'm like, that's what happened to me. When I can explain to people what it was that happened to me, where am I today? All I can say is I used to understand this scripture from a certain place. I used to use it. I used to speak it. I used to teach it. I used to preach it. Be still and know that He is God. Be still and know. Be still. Be.
Yeah.
And I would constantly talk about that. And I'm not sure if I'm at the just be place. I don't know. But I'm definitely closer than where I used to be. And
That's
I,
so good.
if anything, I'm on that journey. A lot of new wonderful things are going on that I'm working with, and there are some people that I have spoken to regarding some of the things that I'm doing here in the future that are pretty outrageous. There, I've connected with some people, so some of what I'm doing, probably more ministry than I've ever done in my life, and thankfully, the budget is there to cover the remarkable projects that we're doing worldwide. So involved with that, more to come later. I love my very private life.
I'll have you back on and you can share when you got some concrete things or things you want to people to be able to partner with
Yeah,
or know
yeah,
about?
and I
Absolutely.
have reached out to some people for the sake of prayer, and also just to begin prepping them for what's coming and how I'm going to plug them into what we're doing. And then I'm also the COO for an appraiser company that's been two people that have been a part of my life for a really really long time brought me in, and it's been awesome. Taking the company from a really really troubling place to where we're at today, which is very successful. So God's been really, really good there. And then some other things that I'm working on, and so yeah, as some of those things become more public, then I'll share more, And thank you for having me on, and I definitely spoke for a little bit longer than what I thought, but
Yeah, I know you've got actually got some work to finish, and so I wanted to tell one story when I was in Beijing, and I was having this moment where I mean it might have been all the times there's the revival going on, and I mean the Holy Spirit would fill up my a little apartment in Beijing, and I mean I would listen to Patricia King, I'd put on the revival, I called someone on Skype that I felt like I was supposed to call, and he had been worship leading at the revival the whole time, and the minute he got on the call, it was like the presence of God just filled up the apartment, and I remember I was having this time with the Lord one evening, and it was just like the overwhelming presence of God, and I couldn't stop sobbing, and I was just freaking out because it was like electricity in my apartment, and I called you on Skype, and it must have been the morning because I was 14 hours ahead, and I was like crying, I was just bawling, and I was like I don't know what to do, and I'm like just freaking out, and you're like Thomas, I want because it was in the bedroom that it was the thickest. And he was like, I just want you to go back in there and just lay down and just try to focus and on God and like focus on behold him. And I was like, and I did. And it was just one of those, I think I was going through a lot of inner healing and deliverance at that period in Beijing. And it was like just incredible experience. But you just were like, go back in the fire. It was like,
good.
go back.
Sounds like good
And it was
advice.
funny. It was, yeah, it was like, oh my gosh, God, what are you doing? But, and I remember when I came back and all this stuff was going on, I remember I like to support people and ministries and books. And I'd bought a bunch of Bill Johnson books at one of these conferences. And I started reading one and he was talking about like the electricities of God and I literally shut it and I was like, I need to quit looking for this stuff in these other people because it was after I had an encounter where I was catching at a conference and Matt Sorge was praying for people and the guy that I was catching, like it wasn't for him. It just got me and zapped me, and they brought me up on stage, and I was up there for like the whole day, just electricities, and it was insane. And I'm like, I don't need to like search it with Todd Bentley or these people. Like I've had these encounters. God zapped me. He's touched like for days when I was walking around and helping with that conference. Like people would touch me and they would like get hit in the spirit. And it was like it was just God was all over me. And I don't know why. I never know why. I'm always like, was he going deeper in my heart? Was he zapping out demonic stuff? Like I always wonder because I've had all these crazy encounters,
Probably
and
all of
it's
the
like,
above.
but if you look at me today, I always said I don't want medicine. I don't need my OCD, my brain, my depression, anxiety. Like it's all gone. And sure, it was a years and years and years and years and years of inner healing and deliverance and growth and maturing. But I've had times where I was in pain and upset. Why did that go? And God would always just tell me, your healing is training and you're going to help other people go through the healing without having to go through. Because some of the experiences I had were not great. The first time I went through a deliverance experience, it was horrible. But I literally saw myself, I've told you the stories before, above myself. I was like in my spirit looking down on me, going through this horrible experience. And then the next day, it was so peaceful. And it was like he was teaching me, you don't let those things have their way. You literally just break agreement with whatever lie you believe. Like, you know
Right.
what I mean? It was almost like, and this is almost 20 years ago, but sanctification takes a lot more than a quick decision.
It's your
It's a
journey. It's
process.
your journey, Thomas.
Yeah.
And your
Yeah.
journey is
But
is not my journey. One of the things that I've
yep.
definitely learned along the way over the last 5 years is to dismiss judgment. I don't know how I got there. Every once in a while, I'll feel a judgment come up, and I'm like, "Oh, that doesn't feel right." I just,
Mm.
I don't have very much room for judgment anymore, and that's a whole other topic for a whole other day. Um,
Well, let's have you on. I know you've got to go. This will be out not this Wednesday, but next Wednesday. I'm going to link a website so we can get a little bio or a little
Okay.
information. Seekeroftruth.co for anyone listening. And we'll have you on again. And you know what? I'm going to pray.
Right.
God, I just thank you so much for introducing me to John all those years ago. I thank you so much for the journey you have him on, Lord, that he's in a place of experiencing you and your freedom and your nature and your peace and your love and your joy. And I just thank you for all the things that you do have for him, that you have, ministries and organizations and nonprofits and whatever you're doing. He is such a world changer that you're going to continue to use him and as a connector to build relationships with others and just to eventually bring him to that place where he's walking right in step with what you have him, without feeling any pressure, without feeling any manipulation or control from anybody, but just knowing that he's where you want him to be and that he's in a good place. And Lord, I just thank you for him and his heart and his family and how they blessed me over the years, and for Marilyn and Devan and Katryel, Lord, I just bless them and thank you for their friendship, and just thank you for John, and that you would just bless him and encourage his heart tonight as he goes to sleep. And just yes, Lord.
Amen. Amen. I love you, Thomas. So happy
Thank
for
you,
you, man.
man.
Proud of you.
Hi, thank you so much for listening. Please like and subscribe to the Seeker of Truth podcast, and also visit our website, seekeroftruth.co, for more information about all of our guests and how you can hear more from them. I pray this conversation encouraged, uplifted, and inspired you to pursue truth at a deeper level.